Yo, what's going on YouTube? Nasif here from Click, and today we're back on Gran Turismo 7, and we are doing the new daily time trial thing, or the weekly time trial that's out. So today we are in the Toyota Celica GT-Four, and has about 300 horsepower. I think it weighs, or 250 horsepower, weighs about 3,000 pounds. It does have all-wheel drive, so very easy to drive, but to really extract the most out of this car, you have to drive it in a very particular way, as we'll see. So let's hop on in, and we'll see here. With any time trial that I do, I usually take the first session essentially to just get used to the car, figure out where the track limits are, how far I can go without invalidating my lap, and how quick you can take the corners, braking points, acceleration points, that sort of thing. So I usually run a few laps, do that for about 10-15 minutes, and then after that kind of go through and just review my laps and see where I can make up the time. So on this first run here, you'll sort of see that time's a little slow, so I'm braking in at around the 100 board, maybe a little bit past it, sticking to the left side of the track, laying back on the brakes here, and just kind of keeping it as smooth as I can. Try not to have too much tire scrubbing. Again, first lap in, first lap on of the day, so just trying to take it easy. Through these bends here, you want to use minimal braking, minimal tire squeal, and just kind of keep the acceleration smooth as you're going through these bends. You don't really need to apply brakes as much as you might think. You could just kind of 50% it and kind of lay off them as you're turning in, like trail brake it around the corner. Coming around this section here, you want to be about 50 to 75% throttle through that first initial corner, and then full throttle once you make it onto the curbs, and the car should grip up and pull yourself sort of all the way through. Over here, I'm braking in at around the 75 to 50 marker, a little drift sort of across the apex, and then braking in and unfortunately missing the apex there and running a little wide on the corner, but not too bad because we are still in a valid lap. Coming into this corner here, I noted throughout the entire time trial, you want to try and not outbrake it or brake too late, because you'll end up at the top of the corner and then you end up losing a ton of speed. So the best thing to do is to slow the car way down. You're taking the corner, apexing at around high 50 to low 60 kilometers an hour, like 57 to 60 kilometers an hour in second gear, and then just throttle your way through. Sticking to the right side of the track all the way around the sweeping bend. Over here, I was looking at my work laptop, so I was on the wrong side of the track. But you'll be wanting to brake probably in around the 100, between the 50 and 100 board to make that corner, and then a little trail brake to make this one. Over here, we're going very wide, which is not the best line. And then down the back straight here, just full throttle all the way through. You don't need to upshift into fifth. I found it was fastest to just run fourth gear all the way through, so that's what I was doing here. Again, first session on testing the limits of the car, I would run the gear all the way up until it hits the rev limiter. Braking in, trail braking a little bit, going a little bit wide, carrying too much speed, so invalidating the lap, but not a big deal. Again, this is our practice session, so braking in at the 100 board, and slowing the car right down, using all the track in my head, what I thought was all the track, and running through and completing our first lap, which I think is not super great. I think it's something like a 2:32, as you'll see here. So there you go, 2:32, not the fastest. So we're gonna run ahead a little bit here, and we'll see how this time trial goes. Coming down the front straight here, braking in a little bit too late, carrying a little too much speed around the corner, catching too much curb and spinning the car and going off the course, so invalidating the lap, but not a big deal. Again, we're looking to not set a goal lap time right off the bat, looking to just figure out where the limits of the car are and where the limits of the track are. And just fast forwarding a little bit here to this corner where you can pretty much, so taking the corner like that is where I thought you're supposed to be taking it and using the curb, but you'll see later on in the video that in usual Gran Turismo fashion, there's no there's no obedience to track limits in this game. So you'll see in sort of later on in the video when we do our fastest lap, where I make up the time on that corner. Again, this corner here that we just passed, you want to make sure you're slowing right down, get the car down into second gear, apexing at around 60 kilometers an hour, and then accelerating smoothly out and just carrying the speed all the way down the straight. Like I said, you want to be on the right hand side of the track here. Again, not sure why I'm not, maybe it was busy on my laptop. And then braking in here sort of between the 50 and 100 board, and want to use a little bit of that curb, run the car wide here on the right side, and then trail brake your way through this next corner and take the speed all the way down to the end of the straight. And coming up to the fast corner here, getting a little bit more brave with the braking point and the track limits there. You'll see later on in the video that you can pretty much cut that corner as well. You don't really have to follow the track limits in any way. With this amount of speed, braking in at the 100 board, but we'll see later on in the video, you actually need to be braking at around 125 if you hit the previous corner using the right line. And again, disobeying the track limits completely and going through now to start our third lap, which I think is so it is a valid lap because we stayed within limits. According to the game, very clearly you can see that we went over the curb several times, but it is what it is. So we'll just take a look and see here at this lap what we're doing. So braking it at around the 50 board, sticking to the right side of the track, staying on where basically all these tire marks are because that's where the most of the grip is, and trying my best to not understeer off and maintain as much speed as I can through here. And kind of going up through the S's here, just a little lift off, trying not to brake too much and keeping the car on the track. And again, using all the grip possible on the track here. So a little bit of trail braking here, just a touch on the brakes to bring the rear around, and then accelerating smoothly out, and a little lift here as well, just to make sure the car turns in. And pretty much you want to touch the curb on the inside line and then work your way out wide and then kind of carry the speed all the way through. Coming up again to this next corner, again, you're going to want to cut this corner very aggressively, nowhere near enough cutting there done, but you'll see that this is one of our faster laps. Same thing there, not cutting enough of the corner, but still carrying a good amount of speed. And again, coming up to this sort of chicane here, you really want to slow down early. You can take the car up to top of third gear, so you don't need to downshift, but I slowed down a little bit too much for that corner. Took too much speed in, missed the apex, and ended up being a little bit slower than I wanted to be. And cutting ahead here to the end of the lap, setting our first valid lap time, which is a 2:31. So again, not enough for a gold, I don't think, but we're still going to push on through because we're only in 3 laps. We're going to try and do at least 5 or 6 laps here, so we'll see what our best lap ends up being. And just kind of got about 7 minutes of lapping there because, as you can see on the right-hand side, we did go 2 invalid laps again in a row. But not to worry, because we did set a fast lap, 2:29.6, which at this point in time at the start of the event is enough for a gold. But I'm still not happy with it because my lap wasn't as smooth as I thought. And also, I'm still about 4 to 5 seconds off of first place's pace. So I definitely know there's time to be made up. So now what I'm going to do, what I usually do in these kind of time trial videos or time trial sessions, is go and watch the first person's lap time and see where they're making up the time. So that's what we're going to do now. All right, so getting things started on the replay here, just switching all of the race information on and heading to the view that I drive in for our time trial, just to see where we're losing time. So the first corner here, braking in at the 50 board and kind of drifting the car over the apex here and using the brakes to rotate, which is something that I wasn't doing before, using the curb and then using all of the track width there to accelerate out. I think over here I was using a little bit too much brakes. The first place driver here is just feathering the brake pedal to get the rear end to come around, so I'm going to implement that in my next session. This corner here, just a little lift, and then same for this corner here, just a touch on the brakes to rotate the car, lifting off throttle completely to get it to rotate even further, and then getting right back on the throttle, using that four-wheel drive to kind of grip the car and suck you out of the corner. Coming out of this section here, upshifting into fourth, this is where I was like, holy crap, you really do need to just completely chop the track limits there, which again, they need to fix that, but it is what it is. Just have to don't hate the player, hate the game, right? So just have to compete and do as well as they are. So again, cutting the corners is essential, basically, to getting into the top 1,000. Again, right here, braking down as much as you can, slowing the car down even as low as 51, 52 kilometers an hour, and then accelerating out. So on my next session, again, I'm going to try and slow the car down even further, and in that case there, slower is faster. As you can see here on the straight, or kind of the curving straight, you want to stay on the right hand side of the road. Like I wasn't doing that in the last session, so you do lose a few tenths there just by track positioning. Using the brakes around the 75 marker between the 50 and the 100 to trail brake the car around, and same thing for this corner, and then again accelerating all the way down the back straight. And coming down the back straight, so pretty much just cutting the corner completely, not obeying the track limits at all, and then braking down here at the sort of, if there was a 125 board, that's where I would be braking. again, cutting the corner here, cutting the corner here, no obedience to track limits at all, and then again cutting the track on the exit and staying on the right hand side of the track to take the shortest line to get to the finish line, which nets this guy 225.5. So now, having watched that, we're going to jump into our own session, a new session here, and see if we can apply some of that to our driving. All right, so back on the track now on our second attempt, and our first corner in, trying to take the line that he was taking, and again taking just a little bit too much speed and spinning the car out on the curb. Not a big deal. Again, we're testing it out to see where the limits of the car are. You have to make accidents and make mistakes to learn from them, so not a big deal. Going to continue to drive and see where else we can make up time on this lap. So these next two corners are where I know I can make more time up. So I tried to cut the corner there, took a little bit too much speed and ended up off the track. But it is what it is. At least I know sort of what the limits are of the car there now, and I can really push for my next time around that corner to try and make up the time. Little pause here to check my work laptop, working very hard as usual. And then coming into the next straight here, or the next corner, I should say, the chicane, we really want to brake very hard. We want to get the car slowed way down, get it down to 50-ish kilometers an hour, and then try and rotate the car around using the throttle and accelerate out. So gonna try again, implement that for all my future laps. And coming down the back straight here, again, another corner that we're going to try and cut as much as we can. Almost gripped up too much there and wasn't able to cut the corner as much as I wanted to. So I'm going to try again on the next lap. And just cutting out, I think, 2 restarts there, trying to take this first corner and spinning out. So on a clean start here, braking in at the 50 board. And again, trying to drift the car almost around this corner, which, most cases wouldn't be the fastest way around. But I guess in an all-wheel drive car or 4-wheel drive car, it does make this most sense. Going up the hill here, again, trying to implement what I learned in the replay, which is using the track, going over the track limits where you think they are, and, lifting off where you can to try and rotate the car around as opposed to using brakes. And so I was really trying my best to be very smooth and deliberate with my inputs and on braking and throttle, and just trying to mimic what I saw in that first place replay. So for this corner, braking at the 50 and really cutting the corner like I wanted to, and I know that's saving me at least like half a second in this sector alone. So glad I was able to figure out the limits of the car and the braking and whatnot, and really getting the car to rotate around and to cut that corner properly. And same thing for here, trying to slow down as best as I can to get the car down to the apex, carry as much speed. I think I understeered a tad bit too much there, so probably losing about a tenth compared to what I gained in the last sector, but it's no big deal. And I'm gonna make the run down now to the last couple corners of this track. And for these corners, again, if there was a 75 marker, that's kind of where I was aiming to brake, trying to trail brake the car around, staying wide here right to the end of that curb before trail braking around this corner as well, and then trying to accelerate all the way down to the end of the straight and carry as much speed as we can. And coming down to the end of the straight, braking at the 50 board, really cutting the corner. The car grips up way more than I thought it would. And then because we're carrying more speed, you got to brake at the 125 marker as opposed to the 100 marker. Again, going across the curbs here, taking as much curb as we can without invalidating the lap, and then again over here not following the track limits at all and just eating all the curb, sticking to the right hand side of the track again to try and minimize our distance to the line, and setting a faster lap at 228.9, which is definitely enough to put us into our goal position, and pretty happy with that lap time, as you'll see at the end of this trial here. And after about 6 or 7 minutes of resetting over and over again, I finally gave up and decided to take a break, hopped out of the time trial, and as you can see there, we are just hovering over 1,000th position, which is awesome. Really happy with that. 228.915. First position is 225.5, so definitely a lot of time left still to make up, but I think that's just going to come down to really cutting those tracks, the track limits, and really just abusing the track limits and maximizing the braking and the acceleration of the car. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is not by any means the fastest way to get around this track, but it is just a way to show you that any normal driver can get a gold on these events. So hope you guys enjoyed. Catch you in the next one. Peace.